First of all, I want to say I normally wear like very muted colors. These are my inaugural colors. It's like back to peace, love, and understanding. Um, I I think that yesterday was a very good virtual event on one level, and I think that it hopefully will bring great things to politics, to pandemics, and to planners of events on all different levels. So I felt like I had to get festive today, and so peace and love to everybody. Peace out. Lots of new guests here today that are doing remarkably varied bunch of things, and I want you all to spend some time in breakout rooms, just sharing what you've done. I want you also, I was very involved in CES from the 11th to the 13th, only it was really in December. I have my own feelings about what went on there that I will, let's just say they did a yeoman's job of getting content together. Engagement was sorely lacking. I have my own predictions about where we're heading this year, and I don't think it's any surprise to know that I think the people who plan May, June, and July events are going to find themselves in a bit of trouble and having to backtrack to maybe doing smaller, more intimate events with a virtual component. So I think for this year, you're going to see real life and virtual kind of at the same time, doing things at the same moment in time. I think ultimately what you're going to see a year from now is us really starting to understand the difference between who served in a virtual event and who served in a live event. And actually, I don't think any of you on this call, it's going to be unlikely scenario to do one large real event and 17 virtual events, or 17 live events and one virtual event. But I think that's ultimately where we're going to get, where we'll be headed to. And so with that, I wanted to, let me see if I can do this. I wanted to show you a little bit. Do I have to share my screen? Yeah. I'm on. Oh, updates available, not now. Okay, share screen. So we've been hard at work. No, that's like the wrong screen. We have been hard at work. Oh, I'm on, not on my, I'm gonna skip this actually. Can you still see me, or can you see evolution of virtual events?
We see you on the side.
You see both?
Okay, so we launched a website, and it is for you to bang on. It needs a lot of work still, but we really want it to be a resource for the community that will eventually have the algorithms to make it a lot easier. But right now, for example, if you look at platform reviews, and I kid you not, there are 150 platforms that people can comb through, and we will start to match these up. These are just the A's, just to give you an idea of what's been keeping us busy. If you go through tools, which are not full platforms, you'll be able to see things that can augment everything from your content to your fun things that you want to do, to engagement, to selling tickets, to eventually audio visual things. And you'll see all our past events, all our media and our newsletters. And I would love you all to bang on it and let us know how we can help you better. To me, one of the first things we have to do is get video providers, production firms, audio firms, so that we can help service people as they need event help. So it's called virtualeventsgroup.org, and there you have it. Next month, we'll talk to Lawrence Coburn from Twine. He actually did the Mingle part of the Web Summit and has a fascinating tool for serendipitous engagements on the web. we'll also be talking to Bob Heck from Freeman and in March, and Victor Torregoso in April. Victor has, I hear this voice. Victor has all of the Intel events.
איזה נחמד זה לצאת לריצה ואז לשים את הרגליים במים.
Okay, Sharon, I know it's you because it's בעברית.
Sorry, I need to mute myself.
Now I have to understand people's native languages to figure out where this sound is coming from. So Intel, Victor's going to share how Intel had to pivot this year, in particular CES, and how they're looking at the upcoming year. So I think if you stick with us, we're getting better and better at bringing people to you who can help you all better your skills. Alfred Poor, our advisor since the beginning, I'll just do a shout out. But I want to get right into today's program. But before we do, I'm going to ask Joel to put up a little warm-up poll just to take a temperature of where you are in your events life at the moment. So if you just answer the VEG poll of the week, and Joel will give you a couple of minutes to do that. And this is the all bets are off, but Joel, can you show the results? Oh, you can, except for me, who didn't who didn't vote. Okay. I think we should have said infinity at the end of that. Okay, so what do we got there, Joel? So a majority, but a slim majority, are transplants from the real world. Most of you are looking to grow your own platforms out of a variety of tools, which is super interesting because I kind of like that also. And we're looking at the majority of people thinking we'll get back together in some form in June and August. We're seeing, if you read the newsletter, some fascinating things like hotels that are putting video production studios into their hotel facilities to facilitate hybrids. We're seeing smaller, more intimate gatherings. Our latest was the Cannes Film Festival, said they were going to go at the end of May, and now they've pushed probably to June and July. So everybody's making some really tough decisions, and I just don't want us to do this in a vacuum. Lawrence, thanks for joining us. I already pegged you for next month as being one of our featured speakers. So now that we've done our warm-up poll, we've taken a sneak peek at the website, let's talk about what we're doing today. So we have two speakers, Andrew Morris and Amit, whose name I'm blanking on, and where are you, Amit? Who is going to look at two things. We're going to look at one, this one's as you can tell by my intro, getting organized. This is my Achilles heel, and Andrew Morris may be the best person to get organized in the world. He's helped me through Money 2020, through CES, or digital money events, and now through his own events at FinTech Agenda. And if you want to see spreadsheets like you've never seen before in your life, you'll want to stick with Andrew. And then you'll hear from Amit Bombi, who actually Sharon introduced me to, and has a terrific tool called 30 Friends to really help with engagement and socialization. Then we'll move into our breakout sessions and just chat a little bit, and then we'll come back and wind up. So with no further ado, I want to turn it over to Andrew Morris from FinTech Agenda, who promises he'll never look as corporate as he does in that picture again. And let Andrew take you through a little bit of what his year was like. Take it away, Andrew.
Sure, thank you, Robin. So yeah, so that I've been looking at that little headshot photo, thinking I need one that's like casual. I look too much like a banker in that picture. But So Robin shared a little bit of my background, and I do have some slides that I'll sort of flip through to walk us through this, but I'm going to do a bit of a case study of an event that I helped organize last year. And it's a classic example of an in-person event that had to make the pivot to virtual. And there are kind of three aspects of that I'll cover and talk about that, and hopefully it'll be useful for everyone. So let me go ahead and share slides, and then we'll make sure that we have time at the end if there are any questions or discussion. Let's see, can you see that okay? That FinTech agenda slide. So that's my contact info. And I'll put that up again if you want to reach out to me in chat about something after the event. But I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to do it that way. Is that working okay? There we go. So this slide represents kind of where I became an events guy. Prior to Money 2020, which was the event that I helped grow over 5 years, I was in the financial technology space as an executive at a bank, as a management consultant, and would attend events, obviously, and sometimes speak at them and be a part of them, but wasn't involved in planning. And so for, the first however many years of my career, that was my background. And then the first Money 2020 happened in 2012. And the co-founders had some experience in events, and they were also successful entrepreneurs in financial tech. And they launched this event, and it stood out right away by the creativity of its marketing. Banking events were pretty dull, and it really grabbed my attention. So I went to Las Vegas and attended this event the first year in 2012, and there were about 2,000 people that attended that year one, right out of the gate. And the next year, I sent in a proposal to moderate a panel and to speak at the event. And I ended up doing that and met the co-founders, and we hit it off right away. And I got an invitation right then and there to leave my consulting practice and to join their team, which was about 10 people, still very small, early days for this event, as the head of content. So I ran Chief Content Officer at Money 2020 for 5 years. So year one, 2,000 people. Year two, it doubled to 4,000. Year three, the first year I was in that role, we went to 8,000, and it just exploded. And you can see, Richard Branson and Shaquille O'Neal and all these folks that were there. But my role there was content. And I brought some of the consulting background that I had to that task. Analytical, spreadsheets and thinking through it analytically, and then also loved the creativity of it. But we had 500 speakers and multiple days of all these concurrent tracks to manage. So that's kind of where I came from in events. I was there for 5 years, and then early 2019 I left. Money 2020 had been acquired by Essential out of London, and it was becoming more corporate. And on my time there, it sort of played out, and it was time to do some new things. And I started the FinTech agenda to do some consulting work, to work for other events producers, and to eventually explore ways that I could launch my own events. So one of those projects was to work on FinTech South. So I'm based in Atlanta, and Atlanta has a really strong community around FinTech. There's this organization called TAG, the Technology Association of Georgia, that had done this event for years. And then in 2018, it grew to a level that we moved it from a hotel ballroom to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So it was a day and a half. The floor of the football field was exhibit hall, keynote stage, the beautiful kind of lounges that you can walk into off of the field were where we did our breakout sessions, and it was a very successful, in-person event that I helped TAG run for a couple of years. And we were gearing up to do it again in the spring of 2020, and then COVID happened. And TAG is in a panic, like everybody else. What are we going to do? And they had this really big budget item of the revenue that they needed to produce from FinTech South, and they were panicked about how they were going to be able to achieve that. So they held out probably longer than they should have, with the idea that they were still going to be able to have it in person. I convinced them, no, it's not going to happen. We need to go virtual. And so we did. And then started to think about, well, what's our vision for this? And, they needed to have the same type of revenue and profit from a virtual event that they'd had at an in-person event. So we're looking at, how are we going to do that? We're going to have interactive content. We're going to have networking. We're going to recreate this marketplace, but do it in a virtual environment. I'm going to try to expand the number of attendees, thinking that, hey, it's virtual, you don't have to travel. So maybe we can have even more people plug in and create brand awareness for sponsors. So off we went. And there were sort of three things that I'll talk about that I think were the key to us being successful. So one of them is this concept that I like to call agenda math. And I'll talk about what that means. The other was kind of bringing local flavor. How can we make attendees that are attending virtually from all over the world feel like they actually visited Atlanta? And at the same time, leveraging virtual to reach a broader audience and have a global reach. So agenda math, local flavor, and global reach is what helped us make this happen. So let's talk about what I mean agenda math. So I talked about my consulting background and kind of bringing it to events. So, and this will be familiar to a lot of you that have planned events, and you all have. So there's both an art and science to determining what is the optimal agenda schedule for your event. And there's a lot of math to it. The number and the format and everything about your sessions and what they look like, it impacts more than just the content and the audience's experience viewing the content. It's going to impact marketing. It's going to impact your operating budget. It's going to impact your ability to reach your sponsorship goals. It's going to impact your goals around building community and reaching out to different people to grow your event. And sometimes it does that in unexpected ways. And so the act of understanding how all of those things connect and analyzing them, really, building models and really thinking about it to produce the best schedule is what I'm talking about when I say agenda math. So on the left-hand side of this, it's all these kind of questions that you have to figure out. How many sessions, and with virtual, all of a sudden you're not constrained by venues. You can make it, as many days or, as few as you want. It's a blank slate. So how many sessions, how many days, how many speakers, sponsors as speakers. So we found that, so FinTech South, there were 70 sponsors, 67 sponsors. And we had this challenge of how are we going to generate value for 70 sponsors in this virtual format and have them spend at the same level they did when they could have a physical booth and space at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So we knew that content and speaking roles and time on stage and time in our video, our live stream was going to be a big part of that. So it was essential that we thought about spots for the sponsors on the agenda. At the same time, as a content leader, you had to be really careful about content becoming too pay for play and dry and not interesting, right? So how do you balance that? Media as speakers, we wanted to have media there to cover the event, to cover the announcements our sponsors might make, to help us with marketing, to moderate sessions. And so allocating spots for media, the diversity of speakers, um, men, women, people of color, and not just diversity in that sense, but also what different kinds of stakeholders. Do we want bankers? We want retailers. We want people from the payments industry. We want regulators. We want, all these types of people to be at our event. The variety of formats. We don't want it to be all panels. We might want presentations and fireside chats and so forth. The length of sessions, and obviously virtual impacts this. You might want them to be a bit shorter, but you want some variety. Is it pre-recorded? Is it done in person? How many stages to run concurrently? So there's all these dimensions, and the only way I could get a handle on it was to build some hypothetical schedules in a format that would help me automatically calculate a lot of these dimensions. And I'll show you an example of that in a second. But the tool that I found to be most useful was Google Docs, Google Sheets. I could share it and collaborate with other people on the team. I could sort of build spreadsheets and schedules and things to do exactly, make it very custom to what I needed it to do. Um, and so that's the tool that I use, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then I built a sort of a schedule view, and then I built a speaker view. So the schedule view would be, how many sessions in what format, and I use that to track, keep track of how many speakers and all these dimensions in terms of the schedule. And then a speaker view to look at types of speakers and the diversity of those speakers and so forth, and blending them all together to analyze this, and played with different content schedules to optimize for your goals. And how's it going to impact sponsor revenue? Do I have enough spots for all the sponsors I need to get to my goal? What's it going to mean for my timeline and my marketing and building in different communities? Doing it as a big model, like a financial model. And then, there's always going to be trade-offs. You may decide that, really in this case, the number one priority is meeting our financial goals. And we might have to optimize some other things a little bit, but we can't sacrifice that. Or you may, pick some other thing. There's some trade-offs. So let me show you the spreadsheet. I'll try to do this quickly. Okay. So this is this mass to get an idea of what I mean. So this is this big Google Doc, and there's a tab for everything. There's a tab for our project plan, the committees and people that were involved in working on the project, their contact information, the budget, our modeling of ticket revenues, our pipeline of sponsors, different features at the event that were attached to sponsors, media partners, and so forth. But the key thing I want to show is what's up now. This is the speaker pipeline. So over here, you have all this list of speakers that we confirmed for the event and their contacts and where they came from. But even before we started to invite speakers and confirm them, I did a lot of hypotheticals of what that mix would look like. And you can see these columns that are tracking all these different things. So, did they speak last year? Did we invite them last year? Are they from a sponsoring company? Are they a founder? Is it a woman? Are they white or non-white, for diversity? And each of these cells is a yes or no. It automatically counts the yeses for me at the top. There's something called conditional formatting that'll turn it red if I say no, and green if I say yes, so you can quickly visually see it. And I did that before I invited them to see what the mix would be and did it fit with all our goals, to get a feel for it. And then we invited, and then once they were confirmed, we tracked what that looked like for the speakers that were actually confirmed. Same thing with agendas, right? So here's a master view of our schedule. You can see at the top, it's tallying how many speakers and how many, different types of sessions. And so I have this schedule view for, all of our sessions, but there's a column for how many speakers and, so that's the level of detail. And, doing that was necessary, right, for us to really get a handle on the event. So that's what I mean by agenda math. So we'll go back to our slide. So that's one dimension. The next thing is, how do we make a uniquely Atlanta experiences, right? So how do you get that local flavor? So we had so much fun with this. So I worked with this company called Spark Network, and more news on that in the future. It looks like I'm going to be working with them really closely, maybe even joining their company. But it's some other event pros that are doing some great things to add some spark to events. And we decided, well, if you came to Atlanta, what would you do? Well, you might experience the music, you might go out to eat, you'd get some feel of the culture of the place. And we brought that into video features in our content. So we did a kickoff reception where we recorded it at a local live music venue, and live venues are struggling. They were, we paid them to use their space and they weren't able they were struggling, right? So we helped the venue, and we worked with this great DJ, Nick Harcourt, who is a celebrity LA DJ, who's just a wonderful interviewer and a great resource. And he reached out to REM's manager, who he knows, to find 3 up and coming Georgia bands that we could hire relatively inexpensively, but they were great music that would feature Atlanta music. And we did this live kickoff reception and recorded it at the venue. So we brought that in. That was the kickoff reception. Then we chose 8 Atlanta restaurants that were sort of local restaurants and did profile interviews with the chef and sort of brought the food, and then made it so that you could order food for delivery if you're based in Atlanta and have it delivered from that restaurant, and brought those little 5-minute video features into the event. We also, working with Nick Harcourt again, did some, Hall of Fame, great Georgia music. You have a lot to choose from: Allman Brothers, REM, Outkast, Usher, Otis Redding, Ray Charles, and did little features about great musicians, and played those little interstitial videos as we opened up our keynote sessions. And then we hired Chuck Lavelle, who was the keyboardist for the Allman Brothers, is a Georgia native, is a musical director for the Rolling Stones, to be our celebrity keynote and speak at the event, right? So we brought that local flavor into the event. Had nothing to do with fintech. It was just fun, and it made people feel like they came to Atlanta. And it was probably the most popular thing about FinTech South. And then sponsors could attach to all these elements, and it gave them something to get brand value from. And then the last thing I'll cover, I don't know how I'm doing on time, but is the world stage. So we decided to really go big on the global part of the event. So we worked with the Metro Chamber of Commerce, a lot of the consulates at different countries in Atlanta that work with international trade and help companies from around the world set up shop in Atlanta. And we built a lot of partnerships around global, and basically helped these organizations bring a virtual delegation from their country to Atlanta to experience our event. And the interesting thing is, in a virtual event, we're all the same distance apart, no matter where you are. It's from your, eyeballs to your screen, no matter whether you're sitting in, Brazil or Singapore or Atlanta. And the only obstacle is time zones. So we picked a whole day of the event, used the morning to focus on Europe, Middle East, and Africa, made it time zone friendly for that part of the world. The afternoon for the Americas, including Canada and Latin America. And then we actually did content in the evening, Eastern time from 7 until like 11 at night p.m. for Asia Pacific. We partnered with the Singapore FinTech Festival to produce the Asia piece. And we're pleased to see that the engagement and the viewers of the content, even in the evening, was almost as high as it was during the day, because it was a unique opportunity to engage with these speakers from fintechs in China and Singapore and so forth. So that was really, really exciting. So it took advantage of global and local at the same time. And ultimately, we're able to actually surpass the revenue from the physical event. And you can see, this whole day, day 2 was a world stage. You can see how it's Europe in the morning and Americas in the afternoon and Asia in the evening, but actually surpassed the revenue targets and did really well with this event. And we're actually doing it again end of June as virtual, even though it's on the cusp of being able to get back to physical, and then hoping to get back to a physical event in 2022.
So,
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you. I saw questions coming through, and I think we'll save them for the breakout rooms where you'll be.
Great. That sounds great.
I love this concept of agenda math, probably because I lacked that skill growing up. But and because I think if you watch through his spreadsheets, the time zones, the number of mathematical equations and logistics and figuring out that go into a money-making event is incredible. So now we're going to switch gears and we're going to move on to the more social part of the event. And what I love about Amit is that he said, not everybody is comfortable like I am walking into a room and just saying the first thing that comes to the top of their mind. And people will struggle with this idea of social engagement. And he was very mindful of that as he developed 30 Friends. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amit and let him take you through 30 Friends.
Robin, thank you. I appreciate that. And, look, 30 Friends was really a development that came from this pandemic that we're in. And I think it's going to start, to tap into a lot of the issues that we'll see coming over the course of this pandemic and as we look at the future. And, for me personally, I was, socializing in a lot of different ways. I'm an extreme extrovert, and a lot of the folks I'm around are not in the same camp as I am, so they find me a little bit exhausting sometimes. But I had teams to run, I had groups that I had to meet with, I had things to facilitate, and to do all of this, it just became so daunting once we kind of all ended up virtual. I am a recovering consultant, which means that there's always PowerPoint in everything I do. But I will try to be mindful of that. And I've become more and more aware of it every day. My wife reminds me and my friends do too. But 30 Friends was kind of born of this idea that, we need a better way to meet new people, that we need a better way to socialize. And, at the end of the day, we need a better way to, network in a virtual world. And, happy to kind of share more of my information later, but I'll hop right into this. And so socializing virtually, it's a nightmare. It's hard in person. It's even harder online. And in the last 9 months, we've jumped about a decade into the future of where we might have ended up anyway, from a virtual perspective. To do this, we've used a number of existing technologies to solve brand new problems. And I would say that, some have been great, but relatively unsuccessfully, especially where we kind of double click into the social aspects. And anyone that's been to a Zoom happy hour has kind of felt some of the pains of this. Some are done much better than others. But I think that all of us can probably say we've sat through at least one that we couldn't wait for it to end, or maybe we had kind of clicked out, before it even ended. And it kind of rolls out into two things. One, organization of these things, it's really hard. And two, when you're in these events, it's very awkward. There's awkward, when you think about engaging people, there's kind of these 3 points that I always look at. Is one is where you actually meet the folks, and you kind of enter a room, think about a happy hour you've been to in person, and you say, okay, there's a little group, I'm going to go talk to them. That's the first part. You got to kind of get over that hump and say, I'm going to engage this group. And now you're in a group and you've got to figure out something to talk about. So that's stage 2. And then the third part that we sometimes forget about is leaving. 15, 20 minutes into that conversation, you say, I'm going to go to the bar, or I'm going to go to the bathroom. And really you just want to switch it up. And I think it's completely reasonable, but we all feel a little bit bad doing it. So that was kind of what we started saying, okay, how do we solve some of this, and what's out there today in that video conferencing realm? The world today is kind of broken out into these 3 different sections, right? And on the left, we talk about these meetings, the learnings, the large conferencing platforms to kind of hold the formal communication. This is normally a one-to-many type communication, things like Zoom and Teams and Hop-in, and it's providing the stage to be able to present from. And on the far right, we talk about ways that we communicate with people that we already know. If you know 5 or 6 people, you can jump on Skype or Zoom or House Party, but you've already gotten to know one another. You have a rapport in place. In the middle is where we kind of found this larger gap. And this was true at universities, it was true in businesses, at conferences, of how do we continue to meet new people and develop real relationships. You may have dabbled with things like Donut and Hop-in has some things built into it so it can randomly assign you to new people. I think that when you go to meet these folks and you haven't met them yet, the catalyst isn't always there to get that conversation going in the right way. People kind of refer to things like Facebook and LinkedIn. Similarly, you're meeting people that you probably won't talk to ever again. And even when you think about using Zoom for platform for this type of thing, the bigger issue here becomes that I kind of compare it to baking a cake. You can go and buy all the ingredients and make the cake, and hopefully you can decorate it. And by the end of it, you have some semblance, at least for me, not a professional baker, of a cake that I can present, versus going to a bakery and buying something and knowing exactly what you're getting with all the bells and whistles you need to truly get this done. So, rather than talk about what this could look like and should look like, I'm happy to kind of walk people through our approach to this. We've broken it out to these 3 buckets. One, we need to find out how to get people onto a common footing, find the interest, and get people into what we call lounges where people want to meet. So this isn't, the conference itself. This is the happy hour afterwards. This is the coffee breaks between sessions where you're actually meeting other people, and we end up deriving a lot of value from those things. And we can break it out into an infinite number of topics, given the number of folks that would be there. The second piece here is to get people talking. And again, this is breaking down that wall of awkwardness. We match people into 6-person groups. We think one-on-one is a little bit too much like a date with none of the benefits of it. And, but we do want to create that speed dating type element where you meet people in finite periods of time for 10 or 20 minutes. After that period, you kind of come back out of this room and you get reassigned to new people. And some of that randomness is actually what drives value for people as we started to test this. What we kind of tackle throughout this whole process is, one, we want to make administration easy. So these sessions, you set them up, you can customize a few things in them, and you don't even need to be there for them to run and facilitate and move people in and out of rooms and to breakouts and all of that type of thing. It's all done ahead of time, and it's all kind of simply set up. And then the second element to this is reducing awkwardness. So what we do is you don't get to pick which group you go into. And we found that people actually like coming in on equal footing with a group of people and talking about the topic heading of that room. Think of, for those of you who remember AOL chat rooms, it's that general concept. You can go in there and find a topic and you're going to engage in that. Two is once you're in the room, we can offer up ideas of icebreakers and how you start those conversations. They're right there, so people are able to kind of get the conversation going without all of the kind of, what do I talk about, the anxiousness. And again, think about folks that are on the other end of the spectrum. For myself, in the introvert column, and I can't even imagine how frustrating that is. And lastly, because the sessions are timed, they end after 15 minutes or 20 minutes, wherever you decide, and then you get pulled back into a larger group. So that finite timing allows us to, one, be more properly engaged, and finally allows us to really connect with people. And lastly, once you're there, you can now offer up your virtual business card, et cetera, so people can kind of see, and stay in touch with the people they really have created connections to. What I'd like to do is quickly skip into this, and I think this is a much better representation, and also to be mindful of time, Robin, so I don't go over. It's just, walk you through, this is what the video kind of looks like, and you kind of come into a platform. We've made it very easy to sign up, and some of this can be done ahead of time. But you enter 4 fields, you come into a place where you can see a number of different rooms and say, hey, I'd like to talk about topic A or B. And once you click into the room itself, you can see who's in that room. Say you're ready to join a chat, and while we're matching you up with the 5 or 6 other people, click on folks and learn a little bit about them. And that all can be customized what you're sharing. Finally, you get ready to be put into a video conversation, and you pop into this group. The thing here is that we want to focus on the video, but down at the bottom right, say hello. This is a couple of ideas on how you introduce yourself. Tell everyone your name, who's your favorite comedian, maybe where you're from. Sorry, it's a little blurry for folks that can't read it, but it's, but these can be customized. And the other place that you can customize some of this is afterwards you click underneath and say, well, give me another icebreaker, give me something else to talk about. And this is going to give you some of these ideas. One thing that I'll allude to a little bit here is that these can be customized to a sponsor's liking as well. Down in the bottom right, kind of covered by the bar here, you'll see there's the space for advertising, so sponsors can have their space there. We talk about various use cases of this, but I think the best way to always do these things is to show them. So again, can't help but go back to PowerPoint, but you have something about cars, so you already have a focused audience in here. Ford is advertising their Mustang, so we can make icebreakers about what's your favorite American muscle car. And allows us to really create a value add for sponsors in a way that they can't find on other virtual platforms today, because we're driving the conversation for them. But once the session ends, the timer kind of clicks down, and you're brought back to the larger room. You can see who is there, who you talk to, collect them, add information. You can only add folks. You can only, share information with folks you have had a conversation with, very purposefully. We don't want folks just, it would be equivalent to just throwing your business card to everyone in the room. We don't want that. We only want you to give business cards to folks you've spoken to. But in essence, I'll kind of take a breather there and stop, and because again, I know I'm up against the time, Robin. If folks have questions, happy to kind of jump into those. But hopefully, this is a helpful overview of what we're trying to do.
I think I saw one question. Somebody wanted to know business cases or social. Like, are you seeing a business need for 30 Friends?
Yeah, so we're talking to universities. We're talking to events. We've, we have done some really early pilots with events as well. To say, how are you doing that collaborative issue? How do you socialize at the end of these events? Because if I don't walk away with a couple of business cards, if I'm not meeting some of this, I'm not getting the value out of this event that I really want to get. And the second use case is around being able to create regularity of that meetup. So even after the event, you could theoretically have your happy hour still happen once a week without even having to facilitate those, and adding additional value for those attendees, so you can create sub communities.
I love it. And Marty Porter asked you, could you white label this? So I'm going to call mine 30 Suits, and we'll just do the business version of it. So I suggest that you guys have as much to share as to each other, so that Joel's going to throw you into some breakout rooms for a few moments, and we'll be back here in about 8 or 10 minutes, and I'll show you the website again, but please talk about what you saw, what's in the chat window, and vanish, and I'll pop in. Okay, so we're back in our places, I believe. So for those of you that joined late, I just want to take one more minute of your time to sort of give you upcoming events. I would like, we will be doing this once a month. And next week, next month, as I said, we'll have Lawrence Coburn and Twine, another way of engagement. And I think we'll have Toy Association talking about B2B events and how to, we've talked about content a lot today. How do you start to monetize the exhibits portion? If you were at CES in any way, you probably found out it was really hard to do. You've seen the press come out and say that basically they sold websites to exhibitors. And so we clearly have to get better. And Toy Association did a fabulous pivot by doing B2B days almost, where Walmart would come in and look at toys, and then Target would come in for a day and just focused on that. So we'll hear from them. We'll hear from Intel the following month, and we'll hear from Freeman, who's had to do probably the biggest pivot in human history, and really do an Ask Me Anything about the things that they've learned. And can I really share my screen? Yeah, I'm on my assistant's laptop. So the VEG group, we are really trying to get there to make this a place where everybody's equal, where we show no favoritism to one platform or another. We just get the information out there for you. virtualeventsgroup.org. This is the tools section, but bang on it. Special shout out to Alfred for helping us, to Linda Nessum to getting it all organized, to Shona, and read our newsletters, pass them around. We're pretty excited about all this. I hope you are too. And we'll even end a few minutes early, unless somebody has a question, thought, comment, inaugural wishes.
I think we should all bring more people to these events. Everybody on the call should bring at least one person next time. What do you think?
The deal.
Yeah, and let me know if time matters. You know, to me, 3 p.m. East Coast seems pretty good, but maybe there's something better.
It's great. It's great, and I just want to help it succeed.
Well, yeah, you're going to give your presentation soon too. You got to get slated.
How to screw up an event? I can teach you that one.
Oh no, you don't have to teach me that. I'm the best. But seriously, you guys, keep doing what you do. Happy new life. Happy next 4 years. Okay. Thank you so much, Amit, Andrew. You were both terrific. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Arun.
Bye.
Thank you.